Hello guys, I wanted to make a video on how to do 6-hour records and records in general and how to 6 hour for a comp as well. So we've seen a lot of people lose 6 hours. We've seen a lot of people in comps in particular lose to 6 hours. So we want to see if we can bring this number of people losing the 6 hours down, because it always sucks to see. Especially when it can be prevented. There's some 6 hours that we cannot do anything about because they are lost to the internet dropping or PC crashing or whatever. So there's some things that are like outside of our control, and there are some things that are inside of control. And those things that are inside of our control is the things that we want to see if we can make sure that we don't lose those 6 hours that we can actually prevent from being lost. So I'm gonna try and explain this, how 6 hours work. I don't think my explanation on 6 hours is necessarily better than anyone else's. In fact, it might even confuse more people even more. But if we have there's something that works in a particular way here, and we're all trying to come up with different explanations for how this particular thing works, and that's what I'm going to do as well. So let's first talk about what happens when you update your profile. So you go to templeoasis.com and you type in your name, go to your profile, and here it is an update button. When you click this update button, there will be 3 or sometimes 4 events that take place, and that's what we're going to go on now because it's important for when we are talking about 6 hours. So first thing that happens is it takes a snapshot of your high scores. So the high scores only update automatically when you're logged out of the game, and now we're doing a manual grab of the data that is on the high scores. That's the first thing that happens. Then we get a 0-point data point. Then one way that I think can help understand how 6 hours work is by thinking of it as starting a bunch of timers at once, a bunch of invisible timers, and these timers, their periods are like the different record categories. So there will be a 5-minute, 24-hour, week, month, year record, etc. So it's a bunch of invisible timers that are running from the moment that you press update on your profile. And the fourth event is that if you update within a timer period, you also get a regular data point. And by regular data point, this is a bit, maybe not the best term, but by regular data point, I mean a contributing data point. It means that whatever this data point shows, it will count towards the record within that category. I know this sounds confusing already, but hopefully we can clear this up. So what better way to illustrate this than going over an example? So here we have an example of a data point. At 01:52:53, I have pressed the update button, and you can see the time of when that has happened by going to your update table. So now we have an 01:52:53 data point, and from this data point, the things on the left hand side will now happen. There will be a snapshot taken from this point. There will be a 0-point data point. A 0-point data point just means it's a reference point, it's a starting point. It doesn't count for anything other than like starting the timers that you see in number 3. And in number 3 we have now started a bunch of timers that are now running at once. These timers are invisible, you cannot see them anywhere, but just pretend that they exist. That's one way that can maybe help thinking about this. And if you update within the timer period, you also get a regular data point. But we will pretend that there are no data points before this data point. So the fourth condition, the fourth event, will not transpire. So we have the 01:52:53 data point, and now we have started a 5-minute timer that runs out at 01:57:53. And all data points that land within this period from 01:52:53 to 01:57:53 will now count towards a 5-minute record or a 6-hour record. All data points within this period will count towards the 5-minute and 6-hour record. Similarly, there is also a 24-hour timer running from this data point here, and it runs out the next day at exactly 24 hours later, 01:52:53 on June 26th. So this all data points that land within this period will count towards a 24-hour record or a day record. And this goes on for a week and a month and a year. Now let's look at another data point then that we see on the right hand side. We have another data point taking place. We have pressed update on our profile, and we have done this at 01:55:28. And now all the events that you see on the left side here will once again happen, because this happens every time that we press update on our profile. All the events that are shown below will take place. So a snapshot will be taken. We will have a 0-point data point. We will start a bunch of timers, and if the update is within a timer period, we will also get a regular data point. And this is important here because, as we can see here, we have an 01:52:53 data point, and now we have an 01:55:28 data point. So since this data point here, it falls within this period here, it falls between the 01:52:53 and 01:57:53. This will now contribute towards the 5-minute and 6-hour record. So whatever this data point shows will now be part of the 5-minute and 6-hour record, and it's also within this period, right? And it's also within this period, and it's also within this period, and it's also within this period. So now we have a contributing data point. This is what I call a regular data point down here. We have a data point that contributes to the hours because it falls within one of the timer periods. It falls after this data point, and it falls before the timers will be running out of these events. So this is a contributing data point. It is also the case that it is also a 0-point data point, which means that it also starts its own set of timers, right? So now there's a timer running from 01:55:28 that will run out 5 minutes later at 02:00:28, and so on and so on and so on, like the case here. So when you update again, we have updated here, and now we are updating here. We do not override the timers that are started here. Now we just have another set of timers that are running from this data point on until it runs out at these moments. So it does not override. You can have as many you can make as many updates as you want, and you will not scuff anything in this regard. The only thing, so it might help to display this by having a timeline of all of the events. So that's what we will do down here. So at 01:52:53, which is this data point, this is the data point. This is when we pressed update on our profile. This is the starting point. Now all of the things on the left hand side will take place, with the exception of number 4, because it's not within a timer period, because this is the first point, this is the first data point. It is a 0-point data point, and therefore the number 4 will not take place, but all the other 3 will take place because we have now pressed update on our profile. And it has taken a snapshot of our high scores, and it has shown that we have 17.7 million phishing experience. And now we have a 5-minute timer running that runs out at 01:57:53, 5 minutes later. So this is what we've done here, and 50 seconds later we are automatically locked out of the video game because we have been locked in for 6 hours, and the game is now forcing us out of the game. If this is just to illustrate this, but if you're going for a 6-hour record, you want to keep the gap between when you press update on your profile and when you get 6-hour locked. You want to keep the margin between these two numbers as close as possible, but not so close that you lose the 6-hour. Because if you don't update your profile before you get 6-hour locked, then you will lose your 6-hour lock. You must update your profile before, and if you don't do that, you're just cooked. And you can only update your profile once every minute. So this is also something to be mindful about. So you want to keep the gap between these two events as narrow as possible. But of course not so narrow that you are losing your 6-hour. And for something like competitions, you obviously want to take no chances. You want to leave several minutes of cushion to make sure that you don't mess this up. So this is just an example where I've made sure that in this example I've made sure that I didn't lose my 6-hour. So there's a 50-second gap from when I press the update button until I get logged out of the video game. So that's what happens here. And now some people think they have to update, but you don't have to update after you've been 6 hour logged, as long as you. The only thing is you want to make sure that you are updated before the timer runs out. If you're going for a 5-minute record, you want to make sure that you're updated within 5 minutes. If it's a 24-hour record, you don't, like if you update here and you're going for a day record from this reference point, you don't have to update yourself until just right before 24 hours later. So, but this is just to illustrate it. The thing that gets people most in trouble is of course the initial 6 hour. So now the next thing that happens is at 01:55:28, this is the data point here, we have decided to update our profile again. We have updated our profile 2.5 minutes later. There's no reason why we do it here. We can just do it here, for example, or here, or we can do it just right at the end. Even though if we are too late here, we might fall after the 5-minute timer, so we obviously don't want to take that chance. Then we might lose the initial 6 hour here, I mean. So, but this is just to illustrate the point that I've decided to now update my profile around 2 minutes after we've been 6 hour logged. And this data point will now show that we have 18.1 million fishing experience. So we have gained 400k fishing experience from the first data point. There's a difference from the reference point initially to this point here of 400k. So now we have 400k gained. And when we logged out here, we will log back in immediately, and we will start fishing. And now we want to log out manually before the 5-minute timer runs out. So 8 seconds before the 5-minute timer runs out, we will log out of the game. And the reason we log out of the game is because the high scores does not update unless we log out of the game. So we have to log out of the game here. So now we're logging out of the game, and now we want to update, because your high scores update automatically, but Temple does not update automatically. It only happens manually when you press the update button. So you press the update button right after having logged out. We do this 4 seconds later, and now the data point, it will take a snapshot of our high scores. We know that because that's what happens when we press update on our profile. One of the things that happens alongside starting a bunch of timers, alongside getting a 0-point data point, is that we'll get a snapshot of our high scores. So this snapshot will now show that we have 18.2 million fishing experience. So that means we have a total of 500k gained. So of course we will not have gained 100k fishing experience from when we got 6 hour logged until and then logged back in, and then 5 minutes later. But this is just to illustrate the point. Of course you will not have 100k fishing experience gained in just 5 minutes, but it's just to illustrate the point. You get the point here. So so we have this is a 0-point data point here. This is a 0-point data point, and this is a contributing data point, and this is also a contributing data point. This is because this data point and this data point, it falls within the 5-minute period that has started from our 0-point data point that has now run out at 01:57:53. So whatever this data point shows and whatever this data point shows will contribute to the 5-minute record. If there was a data point here, if you had pressed update here at, let's say, 01:54 something, then you would also get a data point, right? So, and it would also be contributing because it would land between this and it would land between 5 minutes later. Now I've covered something about records. Now I want to say something about competitions. They work pretty similar to records, except they have their own specified timer period, and you must update manually within those timer periods. It doesn't happen automatically. It's not invisible, and it doesn't happen automatically. And this is something that confuses a lot of people. So there are 2 conditions that must be met. They're necessary and sufficient conditions that must be met. Otherwise your hours will not count towards the competition. So the first one is the competition must start. That's the first one. The second one is you must get a data point, and it must happen in this sequence of events. So the first thing must happen, the competition must start, and then you must get a data point after the competition has started. If you don't do this, if the competition doesn't start first and you then get a data point after the competition has started, then your hours will not count. Your hours will not count towards the competitions if this is the case. If you log out before 1 and 2 happens, then your hours will not count. It's really important to understand this. So this confuses a lot of people because they will see that there is a starting time, and then they will just assume that, oh, the competition has started and I'm logging out after the competition has started, and then I'm good because I logged out after the comp has started and not before the comp has started. But this is not good enough. You need a data point before you can log out of the game. So the comp must start and you must get a data point. If this is not the case, then you have failed and your hours will not contribute towards the competition. So here's an example of when a competition has started, we're not talking about when you start your 6 hour. We're talking about when the competition actually starts on the page. So here we have Sol's 10-year anniversary. We can see that it's starting in 2 days and 15 hours. So we're not talking about when there are we're not talking about the starting time being when there are 6 hours until the comp starts. That's when you might want to start your 6 hour, or when there's you want to start your 6 hour when there's under 6 hours left until the competition starts. But getting a data point is after the competition has started, as it is displayed on the page, on the competition page. So here you can see that a comp that has not started is when it will say starting time. It will say in 62 hours, for example, or in 2 hours or something, or in 5 hours, whatever. So when it says this, when it says start and in X amount of time, that means the comp has not started, and therefore any data points that you get will not do anything. So here's an example of something that has started. It will say instead of showing when the comp started, it will say competition in progress, and it will show how long we are into the comp. After this is the case, you can then update your profile, and then it will start tracking. And below it will say starting time. Instead of saying in 62 hours or in X amount of time, it will say a go. That means that the comp has officially started. That means the first condition is met. The competition must start. This is the case here. The competition has started officially, and now you must get a data point, which means you must update yourself. So when we go to the competition page, we can see an example of some people who have got data points after the comp has started, and some people who have not got data points after the comp has started. So these 3 players, Tupagi, Jonas, and Vado, it will say 0.00, and it will show the HP gains, and it will show when they were last updated next to their names. When this is the case, this is an indicator that the competition has started, and they have also gotten a data point after the competition has started. So from now on, all the gains that they're making will contribute to the comp until the comp timer runs out. They now have a data point, and all gains they make now will count towards the competition. So 2 examples of 2 people who have not got data points is Biofield and Topmon. You can see that there are just dashes next to the name. That means that they have not got a data point yet. So now their gains will not count. The first time that they update, the gains will not count. They need to update themselves now, and then when they have updated themselves, when they have clicked update on the profile, now their gains will count. Now the gains that they make in the competition will contribute to the hours in the competition. So this is an indicator whether you have done what you needed. If it says something next to your name like this, then it means that you have got a data point after the comp has started. And if it says, if it just shows dashes next to your name, that means that the conditions have not been met. The competition has either not started, or you have not got a data point, or both. So, and it must happen in this sequence. The competition has to start, and then you get a data point after. Then you update yourself after the competition has officially started. So you can't really fuck this up. Like if you get a data point, if you update yourself at let's say 9:58, and the official start time of the comp is 10:00, you haven't fucked anything up here. But after the comp has started, you need a data point. So after the comp starts at 10, let's say 10:01, now you update yourself, and since this is after the comp has started, now it counts. You don't mess anything up by getting a data point before, but it doesn't count towards anything. The competition must start first, which happens at 10:00, let's say, and then you get a data point after, and now the gains are counting. So let's say that we have a competition that starts at 10:00. We want to start our 6 hours before, but we want to do it with some margin, and we want to do it when there's less than 6 hours until the competition starts. That's when we want to be logging into the game. So instead of logging in at 04:00, we give a 5-minute cushion. We start 5 minutes later at 04:05 to make sure that there's zero chance that we lose our 6 hour. So we don't want to get in trouble with any of that. So we start at 04:05, which means that we will be automatically forced out of the game at 10:05, which is after the competition is started, so we are not in trouble here. So at 04:05 we start our 6 hour, and at 5 hours and 55 minutes later, the competition officially starts. And after the competition has started, as soon as possible after the competition has officially started, we will press update on our profile, which will give us a data point. And now when this is the case, we now all the gains that we make from this point on will now count towards the record, will count towards the competition, I mean. And so when we are force locked out at 10:05, those hours will count because the competition has started, and the update, we have pressed update on our profile, which means we have gotten this 0 data point. So now we are good to go. If we somehow log out before the competition starts, or we log out before we have pressed update, then we have lost the hours. Then all of this work will not contribute to the competition. This condition must be met, the competition must start, and you must press update. If that is not the case, then it doesn't count. So it's extremely important. So that's why you leave a little cushion, some extra minutes, to make sure that you don't get in trouble with the 6 houring into a competition. So there must be less, like over here you can see how long there is till a competition starts, and you want to make sure that there's less than 6 hours left before you start your 6 hours. You want to make sure that it says like 5 hours and 55 minutes until the competition starts here. If it says more than 6 hours until the competition starts when you start a 6 hour, then you obviously will be forced out of the game before the competition has started, which means that obviously it means that your hours do not count towards the comp. So now I want to say something about records primarily. It's not so important for competitions what I'm about to say, because in competitions you want to leave a good margin. You want to make sure that you really don't get in trouble with potentially losing your 6 hour, because if you do that you have completely scuffed the competition. But for 6 hour records it's a bit different, and it's only really for 6 hour records, because for day records or month records or week records, these tiny seconds don't really matter. But for 6 hour records, since the margins are so tiny in these 6 hour record attempts, we want to make sure that we get as many seconds extra added that we can. So this is why this matters for records, but it doesn't matter for competitions. You actually might want to avoid this thing about this completely in competitions, because you don't want to take a chance that you lose your 6 hours in competitions. But anyway, we always get logged out at 06:00XX, and XX represents a value between 0 and 59 seconds. You always get logged out at 06:00 and then a number between 0 and 59 seconds. And when that happens, it's not random. You can go to this site called Time.is, and these last 2 seconds are very important. So when you log into the game, if you log in at 00 here, that means that the game will try to force lock you out at 06:00:00. So the worst time that you can log in on is when it says 00 here, and the best time that you can log in on is at 01. That will be the best time. If you get logged in at 01, that means you will be logged out at 59 here. So you can subtract the number here with a whole minute. That's when you will be logged out of the game. So since this says free here, we subtract that from 1 minute. That gives us 57 seconds. So if I log into the game when it says free, that means I'll be logged out of the game at 06:00:57. If it had said, let's set 9 seconds here, then I would be force logged out of the game at 06:00:51. If it said 10 seconds, it would be 06:00:50, right? So this is a good thing to use when logging in. You want to make sure that you are logged in as close to 00 as possible in the seconds department, but it cannot say 00, but it must be higher than 00, but as close to 00 as possible. So in this example, let's say that I've logged in at 03. That means I'll be logged out of the game after 6 hours, 0 minutes, and 57 seconds. Then I want to update as close as possible before I get logged out of the game. So that means I'll update my profile at, let's say, 06:00:55, a couple seconds before, or maybe even 06:00:50. And that means that let's say I do it at 06:00:50. Let's say I update my profile then. That means I have 5 minutes from this point on, from the 06:00:50 point, 5 minutes from this point on until the 5-minute timer runs out. So this is just a little helpful tool to win those extra seconds. But again, this is only really a thing that you should be concerned about for 6-hour records. You should not think about this for any other type of record, I would say, and there's no point thinking about this for competitions, because in competitions we want to leave a good gap. So like the concern here is that if you attempt to update yourself at 06:00:55, like 2 seconds before that you get forced logged out of the game, and you somehow mess up, you misclick, or the page is not loading fast, that means you won't get your data point in time, and you will just be logged out, and you've just lost the entire 6 hours. We don't want to risk that, for example, for other records or for competitions. So yeah, with all of this, I might have needlessly confused people more than they were before. I might have made them even more confused. Maybe they walked into it and thought they had a pretty good understanding, and now they're even more confused because of the scuffed explanation that I've given on it. But I hope for some people that maybe they think that it is to some help. Maybe there's some explanation that has contributed to an understanding. So, but yeah, good luck on the record attempts and good luck on the competitions.